Welcome to the Tesla Economist. Please hit the thumbs up and remember to subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter and talk to me on Patreon. As you might have heard, it would appear that the EV tax credit or incentive is now back on the table. You're probably familiar with the details already, so instead I thought we could just delve into the actual economics of how this affects the auto industry and in particular Tesla. The current EV tax credit is a little special, of which I mean in a bad way. Currently, US taxpayers are subsidizing consumers to buy foreign electric vehicle imports, Nissan, Volkswagen, etc. These are EVs that are made overseas, then imported, and given a $7,500 tax credit, whilst all EVs that are made domestically in the US do not receive any tax credit whatsoever, except perhaps the Ford F-150 Lightning. That's right. The US is kindly helping demand for their overseas competition. Why is this, you may ask? How could a government be that kind to the competition? Well, General Motors and Tesla have already exhausted all their tax credits, as it was limited to the first 200,000 EVs sold for each manufacturer, and they were both the only two companies actually making EVs in the US. Even Ford's Mach-E was made in Mexico. Admittedly, they're now producing the F-150 Lightning in Michigan. So it doesn't take a genius to work out this is a flawed incentive, and whatever benefits there are clearly aren't worth it. I mean, to be honest, there is no EV incentive that is of any benefit to anyone, at least not using tax credits or rebates. It just pushes the economy around from one area to another and doesn't actually create or motivate anyone to increase the supply or reduce costs. The cash for clunkers incentive was a complete disaster too, and ended up costing taxpayers a fortune that wasn't even close to realised back into the economy. And this will be no different. Let's go through how this would work. Starting at the consumer level, this means that every consumer in the US can buy a new EV and has a $7,500 discount. Once they hear about this, then I imagine a large majority of consumers want their fair share. If everyone else is getting a discount and a cheap EV, then I want one too. Obviously, this will increase demand. Obviously, won't it? Remember, all EVs already have a $7,500 tax incentive to buy a brand new EV in the US right now, excluding Tesla and GM. Therefore, wouldn't that mean that only Tesla and GM's demand would increase, as there is no change for any other manufacturers? And currently, a Tesla Model 3 standard range is the lowest cost Tesla EV available in the US and starts at $47,000. If the full EV credit was applied, the Model 3 would sell now for below $40,000. Now, the Model 3 has been that price previously, even without any credits, but Tesla's popularity has increased significantly since then. On top of that, the value of a Tesla has increased majorly due to recent oil price rises. Therefore, demand for the Model 3 at this price would shoot up dramatically. In fact, if you traded in a $10,000 ICE vehicle, then it would only cost $29,500 to upgrade to a brand new Tesla Model 3. Doesn't sound like a whole lot, does it? Yeah, well, it's still $30,000, which isn't nothing, and not everyone can find that much money, even if it is for a Tesla. On the other hand, if you're driving a $10,000 ICE car, then it's probably reasonably old, not running very efficiently, often needs parts replaced, and costs a bit on fuel. Well, instead, you could finance the Tesla, and even with a 4.2% interest rate, it would only cost $500 a month to make the finance payments. People love to tell me that Tesla is a luxury car, and I'm dreaming if I think millions of people can afford them, or delusional that I think Tesla would ever come close to selling even 2 million Model Ys a year. But I'm sorry, if you can't find $500 a month extra, or more like whatever is extra after you have paid for gas, servicing and parts, and probably more expensive insurance, then that is on you, not Tesla. Just about anyone, at least in the US, can find a way to save an extra $100 a month or so. But even if they couldn't, they could just find an hour a week to drive the Tesla in Uber. If you want a Tesla that bad, then do your own spreadsheet and work out how you can afford it. Oh, and one other thing, after your Tesla is paid off, those loan repayments, well, they stop forever and you're left with your own Tesla. Whereas your ICE car, well, that would still need gas and maintenance. Wow, that math was really easy. Even if there wasn't an incentive, it's still affordable for the masses when you put it like that. Yes, it is. Teslas are the lowest cost of ownership vehicle you can buy. But as we've talked about before, the buying process of vehicles needs a new paradigm when they're electric. Remember, you're basically getting all your fuel and servicing included in the sticker price. You're prepaying for all your running costs, getting them out of the way, so once you buy the car, you'll have a lower cost of living. Teslas are better for your health too. So why doesn't everyone know this yet? Why aren't Tesla explaining to consumers how they have such low-cost cars? I guess enough people already realise, or don't even care, they just want a Tesla. But when Tesla does get to producing millions and millions, then perhaps a new pricing paradigm will emerge, like buying a house. Imagine if you could only get a mortgage that needed to be repaid in 5 years. Then very few people could afford a house. But instead, we have this entire financial system where we print money each year to inflate the economy and increase the value of property, so banks can lend money to homeowners, as banks are more comfortable lending on an appreciating asset, as in the long run, houses will always go up, as long as the governments keep printing, which they will, because the banks pay them very well. EVs, well, Teslas, should also be classed as an asset, not a liability, especially when they might have the ability to even earn income. Anyway, long story short, Teslas will become very popular, but Tesla couldn't come close to making enough rear-wheel drive Model 3s in Fremont to serve the demand for a sub $40,000 Tesla. Tesla will need to raise their prices, or else it will get ridiculous, like a 2 or 3 year waiting list. That's no good for anyone. Tesla will raise the price, perhaps by about $3,750, perhaps half the EV credit. I believe the cap for the credit for sedans is $55,000. What does that mean? Well, obviously the rear-wheel drive has suddenly got some insane margins by this stage, as it does already. But Fremont can't make them any faster, and Tesla has moved on to 4680 cells in Texas. However, due to such high margins, Tesla might bring over made-in-China Model 3 rear-wheel drive versions, if the profits are that good and the demand is that strong. Of course, the demand for all Tesla's cars will increase. A long-range Model Y back under $60,000. A 4680 Texas version almost in the low 50,000s after the incentives. Sounds like a bargain. Tesla are going to increase their supply and ramp as fast as they can. But when the price drops almost 15%, then demand is going to go up a lot more. I think Tesla will just have to reprice all their vehicles. Tesla don't want too high prices. They're not trying to be some exclusive luxury brand only for the rich. They're meant to be for the mass market, but they're just too popular and have to manage their demand with pricing. So the long-range Model Y will probably be in excess of $70,000, provided it doesn't go over the cap. These are off-brand prices for Tesla, but they can't help it. At least when Tesla's production does finally start to reach the millions, then they can hopefully lower the price. However, the brand now has a higher perceived value, so lowering the prices is really going to increase demand. As for GM, their Hummer is too expensive to qualify. The Cadillac Lyriq will, but GM aren't going to be making any large quantity of EVs anytime soon. Perhaps 2024, 2025, if their cell factories are doing okay. But this incentive has to start relatively soon, because Legacy are going to be making cars when their battery factories are ready. Legacy need to increase their prices by about $7,500 and reduce their battery costs by about the same amount. When you combine the two, then you are potentially left with a small net profit on EVs, but without the incentive, likely still a loss. However, it does sound like this incentive will last for 10 years to provide enough time for Legacy to finally make a profit. However, this will come at an absolutely insane cost, as Tesla is also likely to eat up those benefits. And Tesla can ramp up their cars so much faster than anyone else. Tesla could be selling 4 million a year in the US by 2025, meaning that alone is costing taxpayers $30 billion a year. I don't think Tesla or Elon want that to happen. Also, I don't think the government or Legacy want that either. I think they're entirely underestimating Tesla's ability to ramp and thus have no realization of how much this could actually cost. We should also probably address the elephant in the room. This incentive is for any vehicle with a larger battery size than just 7 kilowatt hours. That is very small and does include hybrids. Some people might think that this is how Legacy will win, by making cheap hybrids for the rebate, but I think Legacy are going all in on fully electric. Legacy may take advantage of the potential profitability for hybrids, but I don't think they're about to reorientate their entire business plan around it. Also, remember, they still have to compete with a discounted Tesla. Even just by the end of this decade, it would have accumulated to around $500 billion in EV incentives. Does that sound right to you? No one seems to have bothered even budgeting how much this could cost. And that's if EV growth is only 30% a year. What really needs to be incentivized, if this was done right, to actually increase production of EVs rather than just demand and help Legacy, is incentivizing the mining, processing, refining of battery ingredients and cell manufacturing factories. Legacy need help, there is no doubt about that. They are attempting to enter a new industry that is foreign to them and are hoping they can just throw cash at it and use their political powers to hope everything will be alright. This tax incentive will simply blow up in everyone's faces. It's far too expensive, yet at the same time, Legacy Autos can't make a profit without it. The funny thing is that about 3/4 of the rebates, or more, will go to Tesla. So although the actual rebate directly to help Legacy may not add up to that much, the fact that Tesla has to take its share just makes rebates too expensive to the taxpayer. Thanks for listening. Please hit the thumbs up and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter and talk to me on Patreon.